The arrogance of man is thinking nature is in our control, and not the other way around. Let them fight.
Don't act like a big shot, Dick. You just got the
You have your fear, which might become reality. You have control, which is reality.
31. You read me? Found something in the ice. We need some help down here. Can anybody hear me? We found something. We found something. We found something.
12 men have just discovered something. For 100,000 years, it was buried in the snow and ice. Now it has found a place to live. Inside. Where no one can see it, or hear it, or feel it.
I know I'm human. Some of you are still human. This thing doesn't want to show itself. It wants to hide inside an imitation. It'll fight if it has to, but it's vulnerable out in the open. If it takes us over, then it has no more enemies. Nobody left to kill it. And then it's won.
You guys gonna listen to Gary? We can beat one of those things!
And welcome back to another Monster Movie Stompdown on the Sludge Cast. This is going to be an absolutely fun one. We hope everybody enjoyed the last one with Mothra vs. Godzilla. Of course, the way we've kept this format, we're going in between each Godzilla film with another monster movie. And this time around, we've got a special guest with us on this show for this movie. And this movie is going to be The Thing by request from several listeners. And of course, everybody in the room and other states that's here tonight really enjoy this film. So of course, you got me, Sludge,
and Mark,
and then you've got the man from Texas.
That's me, Ruben, in Corpus Christi, Texas.
And then our special guest is lead guitar player of The Protest, and he's all the way out from California tonight, calling in. Sarge, you there?
How's it going, guys? Thank you so much for having me back, man.
Sweet.
Awesome.
Dude, I'm glad you're here. So, Sarge, you're actually going to be with us this month for The Thing, because it's your favorite horror movie, correct?
Oh, that is correct, fine sir.
It's such a good movie. We were asking about the Stomp rating earlier, and we'll give our Stomp, because this is something new we're doing with the episode, is from now on we'll give a Stomp rating for each film. And so I had to ask all the guys what their, out of 5 Stomps, how many Stomps do you give the movie as far as how good it was, and Sarge's response was 10 out of 5. So yes, definitely his favorite, I think. But
I stand by that.
Hey, it's worthy of that. So Sarge, you'll also be with us next month for the next Godzilla film, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, which is also your favorite Godzilla film, right?
I know. It's like this season of Sludgecast is all my favorite thing. So I could be just a recurring character on this podcast. And I'd be fine with that.
it's all about Sarge right now. So of course, now this movie that we're going to talk about on this episode is The Thing, and this is not the original 50s film with James Arness. This is not the really crappy, horrible 2011 reimagining, prequel. This is the bomb of the three. This is John Carpenter's actual 1982 The Thing, which we all love. And before we jump into that, though, Sarge, real quick, since you're the guest on the show tonight, I know we've got a few listeners that are all around the country. You guys are fixing to kick off on a tour, correct?
That's correct, sir. Avoiding the protest, we're about ready to head out on this deal. Our second year in a row for the City Rock Fest tour. which is usually consists of Seventh Day Slumber and a lot of other heavy hitters in the Christian rock industry. And I think this year it's going to be us, a great new artist named Zana. She's formerly the lead singer of Ilya, Random Hero, Seventh Day Slumber. Let's see. Oh yeah, and Righteous Vendetta.
Yes,
and another great band, Amongst the Giants. So it's a very stacked card this year, and thank you so much for letting me give that a shout out, because the tour starts February 21st, I believe, and it goes all the way into mid-April, and we're all over the place. So check out all of our social medias. The tour has been posted everywhere, and we are pretty much going everywhere, except for mainly the West Coast, but anywhere from Connecticut all the way pretty much to Texas. I think there's an Oklahoma date somewhere. So we're going everywhere this year.
So definitely, if you're checking out the protest on Facebook, check out City Rock Fest, Seventh Day Slumber, all the bands he mentioned. If you're in the area, go check out a show. I promise you, I've toured with Sarge and those boys for years, and they put on one of the best rock shows ever. Actually, my birthday this year, I am spending it in Pikeville, Kentucky, going to this tour to see them play. Yes.
Yeah.
They're an awesome band to see. You like every band, but I'm there for the protest this year and Righteous Vendetta. Got some friends, Justin and Ryan, that are in that band as well, and they put on an amazing show. I see this being kind of a little bit of a competition between you two of who's going to put on the better show, because the protest puts on an amazing show, but so does Righteous Vendetta.
Sarge, it is his birthday. You guys do senior discounts, don't you?
Not that old, man.
He's going to need that.
Hey, look, Sarge is a year younger than me. I don't want to hear it. All right, not far off. So
yeah, but I am a year younger. So.
Okay, so that means next year you're getting your senior citizens discount, but that's okay because Ruben and Mark have theirs already.
I will always be younger than you, sir. I will always be younger.
You know what? Let's get on to the movie now. So, all right.
Okay, old man.
That was just my 2 cents worth.
So, all right, so let's jump into this. So this, again, 1982, John Carpenter's The Thing. Of course, we all know John Carpenter. We're big fans of John. Halloween, Escape from New York, The Fog, Assault on Precinct 13, They Live. We can go on and on and on for the amount of movies that this man has made, and he's the king at everything when it comes to horror, in my opinion. But tonight we're talking about The Thing. The Thing, real quick, just to give you a quick rundown. If you haven't seen it, I kind of find that odd because most people have seen this movie. But if not, it takes place in Antarctica and in 1982, and you've got a camp of American scientists who are just doing their study and stuff, and a dog wanders into the camp, chased by a bunch of Norwegians in a helicopter as they're firing at it. They, of course, stop the Norwegians and they die. But they come to find out that the dog's not quite a dog. It is something else, and it is an alien from another planet. And it has infested their camp. And the trick to this one is that it can imitate anything on a cellular level. And so not only is there an alien monster in between them all, but they lose trust and don't know who is who. And it is a phenomenal movie, very suspenseful film. There's really nothing not to like about this movie. It's so good. Of course, the movie came out in 1982. It had a pretty good theatrical run. It had a $15 million budget for the film. Actually, almost $2 million of it was done on the special effects by Rob Bottin, which we'll definitely get into here in a little bit. But I think it ended up doing close to $20 million on a theatrical run, so not the best, but it did really good when it hit home video, because as most people know, this became a cult classic very, very, very quickly. And the biggest reason is John Carpenter makes a flawless movie here. You've got a great cast, actually really good cast in this film. You've got, of course, Kurt Russell, who returns for a lot of John's movies. Escape from New York, Big Trouble in Little China. He's the main character, McCready, who is the helicopter pilot at this Antarctic base. And then you have another great actor who, of course, passed away a few years ago. Wilford Brimley plays Dr. Blair in this. Another reoccurring actor in this, of course, is Keith David. You see him in several other John's films, like They Live with Roddy Piper. He plays Childs. Then you've got other characters, Knowles and Palmer, and a really, really great solid cast in this film. Actually, and we'll get into this in a little bit. It's kind of hard not to like everybody on set. Of course, being taking place in Antarctica, it's very tight quarters, very tight space because they can't really get outside much because it's 40 below. So it's kind of got a claustrophobic vibe to this film. It's really, really good. So again, as the dog infiltrates the camp, things just go downhill very, 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 very quickly in this film. And we're going to say some many, many great things about this. So usually, I think last episode, did I start off the likes and dislikes?
Yes.
It did?
I
Okay.
believe so.
So we will not start from me this time. Let's start with the special guest, Sarge. Let's go with you, man. Tell us what you liked about this movie, which is probably everything.
Okay, so this will be. I now have the floor for the remainder of the podcast, so everybody just go ahead, sit back and relax. I actually took a few notes and of the things that I actually really loved about this movie because I just felt like I had to do so. So, what I really, really loved about this movie, first and foremost, I really do enjoy horror movies. And when I was a teenager, going through kind of like my discovery of like the types of scary and horror movies that I really enjoyed, this type of movie. You wouldn't think if you knew he's like this. There's no way he would like this movie because. For me, I'm not a big sci-fi alien horror fan. I'm just not. It never really clicked with me. Usually my favorite types of movies are kind of like the classic haunted house, paranormal type of thriller.
Yeah.
And I was like, when I watched this movie, golly, I must have been in my early 20s, so I kind of came to it kind of late. But what gripped me about this was just it had like this real mystery thriller behind kind of like the sci-fi alien horror built into it. So on the surface, it kind of looks like, oh, okay, it's an alien movie. Okay, we got this monster. But below that, what I really, really enjoyed about it is like there's like this real paranoia factor to it. Because it was kind of like almost like an Agatha Christie, like who did it, like who's who type of thing. And that's what I loved about it so much. Is like, okay, you do have like this alien monster factor to it, but what's deeper than that is you have this thing could be anybody at any time, and you're as a viewer and somebody watching it, you're just like, okay, well, who could it be? Like who did it get to? Like, who could have this? Like, it's not just a monster; it's also this monster is in one of these characters, and they're all, like you said earlier, they're all trapped. Like, they're all in tight quarters, and they can't go anywhere. And for me, watching it, it was so. It has like this very intense feeling that's like underlying this entire movie, because in the movie, another thing I really liked about it that I wouldn't think that I would is just there's not a ton of like really jump out intense like music pockets or anything like that. There's not a ton of music in the movie, so watching it, it's kind of like you're just kind of like watching a movie that doesn't have a lot of like obvious tenseness into it, but like you're watching it and you're just like, oh my gosh, like who is it? Who could it possibly be? So like as a viewer, if you're really into it, you're constantly thinking and you're constantly like putting energy into who could it possibly be. So things like that I really, really enjoyed because like it just wasn't a sci-fi alien movie. It just wasn't. It just like Carpenter and like really kind of like dug into it, and it's like, how can we really, really make this an intense movie? And from that, you get like this whole other psychological aspect to it. So that's one of the things I really, really loved about it. Probably the most was just that feeling of like, who could it possibly be? And like, it was fun for me to try to figure out who could be the thing. So that's probably the biggest thing I loved about the movie, other than the fact that they're trying to kill like this alien creature with flamethrowers. Come on now.
His guns didn't work. Had to burn this thing down. So,
Yeah.
Ruben, what about you, man? What did you like about the film?
Well, what I like about it's a great. I consider it a horror movie, even though it involves aliens and everything, and it's I'm a big horror fan. What I liked about it is the special effects, because I'm a huge George Romero, Tom Savini fan. So in watching it, I saw a lot of. A matter of fact, my favorite horror movie of all time is Dawn of the Dead. That's my all-time favorite as far as horror, just straight out horror. And I liked that there was elements in there in the movie. And a matter of fact, it was actually, when it was released in 1982, one of the pushbacks on it was too much gore.
Right, because it went up against E.T., didn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. And so there was like E.T. was feel good, and this was an alien that, was totally opposite of E.T. So,
yeah, definitely.
But in 82, man, if you're, and Mark can attest to this, horror movies were all about gore. Just about.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was just all over the place. I mean, you had Dawn of the Dead, you had, all these movies were just going all out. And The Thing was one of the main ones. Most of them were imports from Italy. You had a bunch of those coming over to the United States, and you'd catch them at, matinees, or, you'd have, film fests with a bunch of them. So, but anyway, so when that got released, it was different than some of the other American films that were out there, besides Dawn of the Dead, of course. But Dawn of the Dead was, it had some Italian
flair to it.
I'm missing the word. Yeah, it was. Yeah, exactly. So it had some influence on there. But The Thing is totally different. First of all, it was John Carpenter, so you knew he was going to do a good job on it. But what I loved about it was the special effects, and the story was very well written by John Carpenter. He did an excellent job on the story. Sarge alluded to it. You didn't know who to trust or who not to trust throughout the whole movie. So you're sitting there watching it, and you're trying to figure out, okay, who is one of these guys is not what he appears to be. And I remember the first time I watched it, I guessed totally wrong. I'm like, well, it wasn't him. When they were doing that little blood test, and it turned out to be somebody I thought it was. I didn't think it was him at all. And so that's what I liked about it, was the special effects in the story.
Yeah, definitely. And we're going to get into special effects here in just a minute before we go into what we didn't like.
Yeah,
man, they're so good, because I want to talk a bit about what Botten was actually able to do with this film. Mark, what about you? What did you like?
Yeah,
obviously, we're the same with altogether. Was you? I felt like I was chasing the Thing through the whole movie. Who is he? Who is he? Who is he? And I think it was Palmer is the only one that you actually know, because he was in the room by himself. Yeah, and then they come in and find him. So he's the only one definitely got attacked by the Thing. Other than that, you chase that monster through this whole movie, and then I found myself.
Well, I think you did. I don't mean to interrupt, but because the dog walks in with Palmer, right? Or is it Clark?
Yeah,
he comes with Clark, but when they move everybody into the storage room, Palmer's in there by himself, and then one of the other characters comes in and finds him.
No, that wasn't Palmer.
Who was
Palmer?
That?
Was the one dude? Dang it, who was it? No, it was not Palmer. Dang it, it was. Bennings.
Yeah, Bennings. You're right. I apologize. That's who it was. And so he's the first one definitely has it. And then the rest of the movie, you're just trying to figure out who the Thing has got. Yeah. And then you find yourself, or I found myself like, why are we by ourselves in this movie? Why are we looking out the window and there's nobody else around? If I'm there, somebody's going to be by my side. And so I'm not one of these type of people that yell at the TV screen. I found myself yelling at the TV screen. So, you know what I mean? It's like, what are you doing? So, favorite part is just trying to figure out who's got it, who's next. And to me, it's a phenomenal movie, and it keeps you on the edge of your seat from the start to the finish. Yeah, that was really good.
Absolutely.
With me, because I mean, I'm agreeing with all you guys, and anybody who has ever seen this movie will agree. I mean, the who's who. You know, it's almost like Clue. You know, makes me think that's like, you know, who really did this, or who's who. I love that mystery, and he did very well. Carpenter did of making sure we didn't find that out till the last moment we kind of had to keep the story moving. So I mean, I definitely agree with that. The special effects, I definitely agree with. It's one of my favorite things in this film, because I mean, special effects is key to me, and we're going to get in here in just a second on this one because I think it's special enough and big enough to talk about. But I want to say the thing that I liked a lot about this film, and Sarge nailed something too that I really liked, is the lack of musical score. Because when you look at Carpenter's films, he does the musical score for all of his movies, and any of his movies you go back and listen and watch, there's a lot of musical score in it throughout the whole film, and stuff that's, you know, like the Halloween theme, the Fog theme, the Escape from New York theme, things that are memorable and people still know to this day once you hear it.
Right.
And for him to go to this movie and there being almost nothing was such a huge change for him. But it did, like, it was very impactful. I think it drew me in more because usually, you know, the key and the importance of a musical score is to help the watchers move along, to help keep them entangled into it. Because when the movie's pumping an action scene and you got to just real pumping score, you're into it more. If it was, you know, a big explosions going on, then you got a Disney theme happening at the same time, you're like, what's going on? This doesn't make any sense. You know, you'll get lost. So the score is key to keep you tied in. His lack of score, I think, tied me into this movie even more. It made it so much more intenseful because there's no sound.
Yeah.
You know, and what little sounds.
It's the isolation thing. That's my thoughts on it, is he did it to make you feel more isolated. I mean, they're isolated out there, and they wanted to bring the audience into that isolation also.
Yeah, and which is
absolutely.
Awesome. I mean, that to me is a testament to Carpenter. Because, he's the director, but he also does all the musical scores for his movie. So the dude knew what he was doing. And, I mean, it's brilliant. The other thing I would say before we move into the special effects stuff is the thing I liked most about this was the characters. Every movie, even John Carpenter's films, there's characters I just don't care for. You know, there's characters we don't care for in a lot of films. But there was nobody in this film that I did not like or enjoy throughout the whole movie, and each character the actors really brought themselves to life. Of course, you know, Walter Brimley playing Blair. I thought he was so good because you used to seeing him in like the Red Fern Groves and, you know, those old classic family films or dramas. To see him thrown into The Thing, the only movie that I'd seen prior to this where he was kind of out of the box was Remo Williams, and he had a small role in that, which was very different. To see him go to this, I was so impressed with him, and he did so well throughout the whole film. I mean, because, you know, when they put him out in that cabin, you're like, oh, he's definitely one of the things. Oh, well, maybe he's not really one of the things. I mean, he did so well. Then, of course, Kurt Russell, man. Kurt Russell is, when, you know, Carpenter used a lot of the same actors, but Kurt Russell, that was his dude, man. And I think Russell was phenomenal in this because he really portrayed McCready in a way. McCready seemed like... He didn't even really seem to care about anybody else. He cared about surviving. But how do I handle and control the situation and take lead in the situation I'm in? Kurt delivered so well on this character, I think.
He did an excellent job.
Oh man, I mean the part where they, you know, Knowles locks him in his cabin and he comes back in and he's in that room with the dynamite. He's just like, test me. I mean, like, I'm like, dude, he don't care. He will kill everybody, including himself at this point. I mean, the dude's all about survival and stopping this alien, which is great.
Love that part.
Oh man, it's so good. And they jump him and like, it's nothing. Just Kurt Russell. He throws him off like they're, you know, he don't have to be Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's Kurt Russell. That's all he needs. Right. So yeah, I mean, I love that. And of course, we've talked about the special effects. Let's really jump into that real quick because in the 80s, you know, 70s and 80s, especially the 80s, you're looking at a time, like Ruben, you said, a lot of gore. Special effects was huge at this time. And you had several big warring special effects directors or people trying to be special effects directors that were wanting to get their foot in the door. You know, Tom Savini with the Dead film, you know, the I Live and Dead, Day of the Dead films.
Yeah.
He was one of the greatest there was. But on top of that, you've also got Rick Baker, who Rick Baker was actually one of the people they wanted to do this film, but they instead gave it to Rob Bottin. Rob Bottin was pretty new to this. You know, he hadn't done a lot of films. One cool thing about Rick Baker and Rob Bottin is, before we jump too deep into this, is they actually both tried to get on to do special effects for The Howling, and it was Bottin who won The Howling and did that crazy transformation sequence, which you can tell was him because of what happens in this film, that it's definitely Bottin style. But while he was doing that, Baker was doing American Werewolf in London. So you had two of them, the two biggest warring names of special effects at the time, doing two werewolf films at the best time of who handles the best. I think Bottin definitely got the best transformation sequence. I don't know, it's so hard because you look at American Werewolf in London, you're like, dude, like that.
No, I don't know, man.
That was
groundbreaking.
Oh yeah, because that was just, they both look so painful. But and we can go really deep into that. But so to me, the best special effects artist of the time, and I love Savini a lot. Even as an actor, he was great in From Dusk Till Dawn. But to me, the best special effects directors of the time, or special effects guys, of course, you had Stan, but Stan really didn't. Stan Winston, for those who don't know who I'm talking about, but Stan, he really didn't go too much into horror. You know what I mean? He did Aliens, he did Terminator and stuff like that, but Pumpkinhead was probably as much horror as he got. When even then, he stepped back to direct instead of doing the special effects.
Good movie.
But it was really Rob and Rick Baker who I thought were the best. And Rob really went above and beyond with special effects in this film. The special effects in this film, when I sat here and watched it again earlier today, I mean, we're in an era where computer effects are galore, and there's some amazing computer effects. This movie came out in 1982, and the special effects in it, other than one scene that me and Mark talked about earlier, they're better than most of what I see today. Like, the special effects in this held up so well. I mean, unbelievable. Every scene with the Thing just floored me. My favorite definitely would have to have been the spider head. You know, when they're in there. And the doctor puts the jumper things and bites his arms off, and then the head gets ripped off. And dude, that whole sequence was unbelievable.
Well, and I think
I love that part where they go, "You got to be kidding me!"
That moment right there is pretty much when I fell in love with the movie.
Yeah,
watching it for the first time, because like I said, I probably watched it when I was like in my early 20s, and I just had no idea that was coming. Like, I knew he it seemed like he had like a heart attack or something, but then just like when that opened up from the defibrillator or whatever, just like, oh my gosh, like this thing has no one identity, and it can look like anything, and it has like no set thing. That's like the other thing that I loved so much about the movie, was like it didn't look like one thing. That's what I loved about from this. Whenever it was on scene and it was attacking or defending itself or whatever, it did not look the same from the scene prior to. So that's why that was another thing that was so great about watching the movie. It's like, what's it gonna look like?
Yeah,
what's it gonna look like?
You never really knew.
And like how it could adapt. So like when you were talking about like how it became like kind of like the spider head, is that you were referring to?
Yeah.
Yeah, like that right there is like how it could adapt, and that's another thing that kept me so entertained, was like, this thing can just go on the fly, and it finds a way to survive, like no matter what. For me, really, that's horrifying. It's just kind of like, it kind of was like a step ahead of you. Like, they're trying to kill it. They know they can burn it and kill it with fire, so that's what they're trying to do, but it's breaking away, and it's finding another way to survive. And like, that is a really cool part, and like a really cool concept to have like in a horror movie. Like, this thing is just highly adaptable.
Well,
I dig it.
I think that when in watching it, speaking of special effects, and a lot of times when you see movies, there's almost a break. I mean, when the special effect kicks in from the live action,
Yeah.
And I thought with this, you didn't have that. That played pretty smooth all the way through. Once the action, I mean, once it just came through, the chest opens up and it starts. You don't get that change. I don't know how to explain that.
Right, it was real organic and fluid the whole time.
Oh yeah, and I thought that was really great about the special effects of this movie is you really don't, other than the one we had talked about, it stays smooth all the way through. I think it the way I saw it.
Yeah, and the one that we were referring to for those listening and Sarge and Ruben, because we hadn't talked to you guys yet, was the only special effects scene in the movie that we didn't. Well, still looks great, but didn't hold up to today's standards. Because every special effects scene in this absolutely is better than most special effects scene you see in movies today. I mean, you look at the Meg or Venom. While it looked great, the special effects in that do not look as good as this film. Was the scene where Palmer, they were in the blood test, they find out and realize that he's the thing. He's one of the things, and his face splits, and he gets Windows by the head and starts shaking him around. Obviously that was puppetry. You know what I mean? Yeah. But
that's the only part of the movie where when he's shaking him above his head, that you could tell it is puppetry.
But it still looked great.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. Like what Sarge saying, and the special effects,
I didn't mind it.
I didn't mind
it at all.
It still looked good.
I kept right on going.
I loved it. I mean, like what Sarge was saying too. I mean, because Blair even talks about this thing, in his journal when Fuchs is reading the journal to McCready in the helicopter, that this thing could have been on 1 million worlds and imitated 1 million different life forms. There's no end to what this thing could turn into on its own because it changes, and each cell individually survives on its own as an organism. So I think that was awesome is when you look at it, every scene, if you go watch Alien or if you go watch The Predator or whatever, you know what you're going to see. It's the same the whole time through. And Sarge made a great point. In this one, it's never the same. It is always changing. Every time you see it in full force, it's something completely different. But not only is it something completely different, it's multiple things. You see different life forms. I think of it at the end of the film when it comes out underneath up from the ground in the basement area of the compound. There's a head of the dog, from when it got the dogs were in the film, to all these different things that are humanistic and faces, and it's just life forms from all over the galaxy, which made it amazing. I mean, in that dog sequence in the pen, that was it for me as a kid. Yeah. Like, I remember watching this as a kid, and when I first saw this, and I don't know, Sarge, I don't know how old you said you were when you saw this. I probably saw this when I was, what would you say, 8?
Maybe that, yeah.
Yeah, real young. So as a kid at that age, when they go to that dog pen, man, I was just like terrified, but at the same time going, this is the most amazing thing I have ever seen. And, when they shoot him, or when you hear that first dog roar, the echo sound, that like the chamber effect they use for the noise coming out of it was just, sends chills down your spine. There's just the special effects were just absolutely amazing. The whole film, there was just above par.
Excellent.
So for those listening, if you get anything from it, what we're trying to tell you is this movie has amazing special effects. Just so you know, if you haven't caught the gist of the conversation,
Absolutely.
If you haven't seen it, it's a must see. You just
absolutely
have to see it.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so
definitely, if you're gonna list some movies to watch, horror movies or sci-fi, even that's got to be on the list.
Oh
Got
yes.
to.
It absolutely has to be. I mean, even on a John Carpenter list, I would put it in the top 5.
Oh yeah,
must see films for him. Well, so okay, so we've talked
sure.
what we've liked, the amazing soundtrack or lack of soundtrack for the film that made it so good, the amazing special effects. Is there anything you guys didn't like? Sarge, let's start with you again, man.
You know what? Like, I'm so biased to this movie. I haven't really thought about like what I truly didn't like, but I just watched it yesterday, and really, and it's not really a huge knock to it at all. But because, like, think about it, this is from 1982. This is from, decades ago. So some of, I guess, like, if anything, some of the editing was kind of quick, and I feel like some things could have been, I guess, like, my the one biggest critique I'll give it is like there's a few things that could have been fleshed out a little bit more, to like give it a little bit more depth to it. Just as far as like some backstory. And I'm trying to think of like a specific example right now, but like if you watch the movie, there's just a few things that kind of happen. I don't want to say haphazardly, but they just kind of happen, and then you just kind of go on from there. So I feel like if anything, there's a little bit of the editing could have been done a little bit better. Other than that, I mean, really everything else I pretty much enjoyed. Because like the soundtrack I love. I mean, like, you know, it's very, very minimalistic. I'm sure like people today probably won't enjoy it that much. Just like the hook in the soundtrack is like just like one note. It's just like that.
Yeah, oh yeah.
That.
It's
So,
what
like,
the
I'm
Jaws
sure
theme wanted to be. That's what it is.
exactly. So I'm sure some people would knock it in that regard, but like if anything, I'm trying to think because like you and I were talking about like, hey, we're going to have you on the show, and then we're going to talk about your favorite horror movie. I never really thought about like the things I really didn't enjoy, and because like I said, I'm kind of biased to it. But if anything, yeah, there's just a few things that kind of happen kind of fast. Things that could have been like detailed a little bit more, like Child towards the end of the movie. Like Child disappears, and like he comes out like the front entrance, and then I think who was it? Noel says like he's like, yeah, I saw a child like come out like the front entrance, and then he's gone, and then like he's gone forever. He doesn't show back up until like at the end of the movie. And I was like, well, what was he doing? Like, how do you like? There's a couple of things like with like explosions. Like, I'll give you a perfect example. Then we'll move on. Like, towards the end, McCready, he like throws like he's setting up like the dynamite with the dynamite box, and then the thing takes all that down, but then he throws like a single stick of dynamite, essentially kind of blows up the entire base. So I'm like, okay, it's a little out there, but in my head, I justified it because I love the movie so much. I was like, okay, well, the single stick of dynamite set off the rest of the dynamite, therefore it blew up the entire base. And then 5 minutes later, McCready has a blanket and he's got another bottle of J&B. He's walking around and he's fine. And then Child shows up. So little, and like for me, that's little things. It's minuscule, but like still, if I had to like critique it in a negative light, it'd be little things like that. Like, okay, that's a pretty big explosion, but he's got a blanket and he found another bottle of booze. So and for me, I accept that. It's 1982. I accept that, but if I had to like nitpick it, those would be the things like I noticed.
Yeah. So nothing even really major at all. What about you, Ruben?
Well, I'm going to agree. I didn't like the ending. I thought it was. I just didn't care for how it ended.
Oh, man.
I mean, the whole movie's fine.
All right, hold on. I got to ask, Ruben. I got to ask because I want to make sure you've thought about this one. Because when I watch it, the ending's one of my favorite things about the movie because yes, Childs is gone for quite a long time. Okay, we see him running out of the compound, then all of a sudden he's there again with McCready at the end, and McCready makes that statement, you know, where were you, Childs? You know, and Childs is like, well, do you think I'm one of the things? He's like, well, I think if you are, we're both too tired to do anything about it. It left you going. It left you going, is Childs a thing? Did the thing survive? What? And they end it. It's like, what happened? What could have happened between them? So for me, I was like, oh, I love, because it was such a question at the end of the film. For me, it was such a huge question because I never once decided, okay, Childs isn't a thing, but I never also decided he is one. So for me, forever watching it, that's why I'm wondering. I mean, because I know you said you didn't really care for it, but have you ever thought about it in that light?
I did, but that's what I didn't like about it.
Oh, okay.
I wanted, what I didn't like about it is I'm not a big sequel guy. I'm like, man, I want to know what I want to know. If there's going to be a knockout drag out, then let's have it. But we weren't. And of course, you go another, I don't know, time elapse, 30 minutes, we find out who, because one of them's going to freeze. If he's the thing, he ain't going to freeze. And then that's because it thrives in the cold weather. And I'm like, I want to know,
Right.
because he disappeared. And my first thought is, he's the thing.
Yeah.
He's been infected, or he's been simulated or whatever, and I wanted to know that. So that's what I didn't like. That's the only thing I didn't like about it is I didn't want that open ended, unless you're going to give me a sequel, which I didn't think was going to happen,
or not haphazard prequel.
Yeah, exactly. That's I don't know. It just bothered me a bit because they were either both going to die, or one of them is the thing, and I'm never going to get to find out. So it kind of left me hanging.
Right.
And another thing I didn't like, and then one other thing, which is just aesthetic, is I didn't like McCready's hat that he wore.
Yeah. The front and back bend or whatever on it. Yeah, that wasn't on hat.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm with you there. I was like, dude, you can't wear a sideways cowboy hat. Like, it doesn't work.
And that just bothered me when I said, why? You're Kurt Russell. You don't need that hat.
Exactly.
But, so really, that's the only two things I didn't like. And it's not like the ending shot the whole movie for me. It's just I would have preferred a more like
closure
like
to
a
that.
resolution.
Yeah. They're not so loose. More of like I'll describe it like this. I would rather have had something like, which was kind of open ended, is like the ending of The Exorcist, because it was all over. You had some closure, but there was always just a little question on the future.
Yeah,
and that's it.
I see that.
Yeah. That's about it for me.
What about you, Mark?
Well, I'm probably the world's worst on finding negative things out of movies, because when I enjoy them, I like them. I really don't see anything bad or negative on this movie. If I had to be maybe kind of like Sarge, nitpicking a little bit, when he's in the room and he's got the dynamite in his hand, he's got the flare right next to him, like 2 inches next to the dynamite, and never sets that dynamite off. And I kept looking for the fuse, and I never could find a fuse on that thing. So, but I didn't have anything.
There was no fuse. That's right. There's no fuse.
Yeah, there wasn't.
That flare is right on that.
Because I caught that too. I'm like, dude, you're holding that flare right next to that dynamite.
That's if anything, that's the only thing I noticed or even made in thought or commented to myself. Was like, dude, you're setting that dynamite off if you don't look at what you're doing. Then I started saying, wait.
And
where's the fuse on that dynamite?
They get into a scuffle, and still nothing happens, even with the scuffle. I'm like, really?
That's just how good Kurt Russell is, right there. Man, for me, nothing. There's nothing. Of course, now that's coming from the guy who loves the greatest of the B films. Sarge and the rest of the guys at Protest, we watched the movie called The Outing forever ago, and I was like, guys, you're gonna love this film. It's so good. Sarge, what was your opinion? Yes, yeah. How bad was that movie?
It's bad. It's bad, dude.
It's so bad. So yeah, it's not a good film. My standards are kind of low sometimes when it comes to horror films, but that's not saying that this was a bad movie at any time. It's amazing, but I didn't. There's little things you notice, kind of like, we'd have to nitpick, but if you're just watching it and just kicking back and enjoying yourself in a good horror film, nothing. This thing was, no movie's perfect, but this thing's pretty close to it, in my opinion. Pretty close to being a perfect film. So I got nothing I don't like about it.
Which is totally fair, because if you really think about it, like, if you're a true horror fan and you know your horror movies, then you have to know, like, okay, think about it. This was back in 1982, okay?
Yeah.
And things are so different now. You have to, like when you watch a movie like that, you just have to think about, and even then, it's still amazing. Like you guys said, the special effects hold up to this day. I mean, even a few years prior to 79, you had like the first Alien movie, which to this day, special effects wise, it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
But
oh yeah,
going forward from that, it's like when you watch a movie that's made in the early 80s, you're just like, okay, not everything's gonna hold up. So, but I mean, still, The Thing, I mean, like for its time, yeah, it holds up. Seriously.
So yeah, so unbelievably well. Because I can't even think of a horror film other than that's better at holding up more than The Thing. Other than maybe Alien. I mean, because if you look back even at the great movies from then, back like The Howling, or even Cujo, because there are some scenes I can think of in my head of like, well, that special effects scene didn't hold up. There's a lot of them where they look great, but there's just overall there's things that just don't hold up over the time. But this is one of those instances, and Rob Bottin knocked it out of the park. Those special effects, man. You watch it today, and it's like that's better than most things that I see.
And I think a lot of when movies hold up when they're by themselves, they stand alone. Ruben talked about Halloween earlier being
right
his favorite John Carpenter movie. I think if there wasn't 19 other Halloweens past that movie stands alone. You know,
oh yeah,
you know, and so I mean it's kind of those situations where they play him. The Thing doesn't need a sequel, in my opinion.
Yeah, no.
And just a fantastic movie that you can watch over and over and still get enjoyment out of.
Yep, absolutely. And the attempt with the prequel was, I mean, horrible. I mean, I didn't like it.
I don't know that I saw it.
It's not worth seeing. It's about what happens before this. You know, at the Norwegian camp. You know.
Oh wait, yeah, maybe I did.
Yeah,
maybe I
mean, and the only thing that carries it is Mary Elizabeth Winstead, because I mean, she's a great actress, and everyone else was terrible in the film, and the special effects were terrible, and it was just not good. But so there's a couple things I do want to talk about this movie. And me and Sarge were talking earlier. Found out some cool things that I did not know about this film. Two things actually that I'd found out. One was that John Carpenter actually starred in this movie. Did you guys know that?
No,
I knew he was in it. Yeah,
the Ruben
yeah, I did. Well, you said starred. I know he made an appearance.
Yeah, it's an appearance. Yeah, so he
was one of the. Yeah, he was one of the Norwegians, right?
Yep. He in the video footage where they're watching, he's one of the Norwegians on the video footage. So I'm telling you, man.
And he's in the photograph. Remember, he goes, "What were these?" I think he makes a comment. What are these guys up to, or something? There's a photograph, and I believe he's the guy in the far left.
Yep. He's in that. Yep.
Yeah,
that's him. Which I thought was photograph, which is pretty cool. So, and the other thing I learned about this film that I didn't know was there was, of course, Carpenter is big about, casting the same people he likes to work with, Kurt Russell and Keith David. There is another really big actress, I should say, an actress who was in this movie that's in a lot of his other films. Anybody got any clues, ideas?
Now that one, I don't know. Yeah.
Adrienne Barbeau from The Fog was in this film. She was the voice for the Chessmaster computer that Kurt Russell's playing.
That right?
Yep, that's Adrienne Barbeau.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So I was like, that's pretty.
Now that I didn't know. Yeah, now that was a new one. I knew about, because John Carpenter is kind of like Stan Lee. He likes to interject himself, into the films. Mm-hmm. I mean, not that Stan Lee does it himself, but he makes like
Hitchcock. Like how?
Yeah, he was Paul's voice in Halloween. It's just different things. He just liked to do those kind of things and change his name up on the credits and do all kinds of stuff. But I did actually know that one about. I didn't know about Adrienne Barbeau though.
Yeah, I thought that was really, really cool. So I watched it today. I'm like, it's Adrienne. So Sarge, what about you? You said you learned some stuff today.
Yeah, I did. One thing I remember from it's been a few years, but I think I remember from an interview with Carpenter. So, first of all, let me backtrack slightly when we talk about the special effects, like how even to this day they will hold up. I'll give you the perfect example why they hold up. So when the scene's happening, when the guy what was it, Dr. Copper got his arms ripped off from the defibrillator, opening, his chest opening up, So like all that's happening, they're like setting him on fire, and then you see, what's the character's name? His dang it,
Windows?
his name escapes me right now. Norris.
Yeah, Norris.
Oh, the one that's on the table.
Norris.
Yeah, so like going back to special effects, like when Norris's head is separating from his body, if you look at his face and like how it's like you can see it's like in pain, like or anguish, like he's like that head is separating from the body, and you're just like, golly, you can see the expression on his face, like what it's taking for it to like separate from the body. But that right there, that will always hold up until the end of time, right there for 1982 effects. So that right
so
there
true.
Goes to one thing I've learned was like when that thing that head separates, and then it kind of like morphs into another thing, and like kind of like sprouts like spider legs and like some couple of eyeballs. So I remember Carpenter saying like they had enough footage, or like enough film, I should say, for that to like creep across the floor, and they were going to set on fire. They only had one of those to do. So like they only had one take to set that on fire and get that shot perfect. So they can only do that once. And obviously they nailed it. But like that was really, really cool. It's like, oh my gosh, because like if you think about it back then, everything's digital now, but then they had film, and then film was really expensive to have and to use. So it's kind of like there are certain things like that. It's like, okay, guys, we got one shot at this to get it right, so we got to get it. So that was like one of the situations where they set that one thing on fire, and to get like the perfect shot for it, and they nailed it. So there was that one. And then that's kind of like a fun one. But the other one that I really, really enjoyed was towards the beginning of the movie when the dog got to the camp. Let's see, you see the husky going from kind of like room to room, coming down the hallway, and then you see a silhouette, like it kind of stands in the doorway. Yeah. You see a silhouette of, like, you don't know who it is. So, Carpenter did not want anybody in the audience to be able to like figure out who it was. So that silhouette is none of the actors in the movie. That is somebody, probably like a stagehand or somebody that's not in the movie at all. So he didn't want anybody to be able to guess who it was. So I thought that was so cool because like I've done that. I watched that scene over and over again. It's like, who is that? Just to see if I could do it for myself. Couldn't do it. Then I found out like not an actor in the movie.
That's cool. I always thought it was Clark. That was always my first guess. But I mean, go back to it.
I thought it was Norris. It's kind of like, just judging by the nose, if you really watch, it kind of looks like Norris's nose. But it turns out I was wrong.
Hey, by the way, just so Sarge, so you know, in case you listen to them, we always have the movie playing in the background when we record these over here at my house, and the thing's playing right now. And yeah, he's got the no wick dynamite. There is no wick on that. Just looking at it, you're right. There's no wick whatsoever on that dynamite. That's awesome.
The no wick dynamite.
So it's a great film. This movie did really well. It did pretty well in theaters, almost $20 million, so not as big as they wanted to, but it became a huge cult classic hit, spawned a horrible prequel. However, the game did spawn an amazing video game that came out on Xbox and PlayStation 2. Did you guys ever play that?
I did. Dude, I cannot believe you even brought that up, because when you called, like when this whole podcast started, I threw that game on YouTube right now, so I'm actually watching it right now.
Awesome, dude. Okay,
just for fun. I had no idea that you were going to bring that up, so
that's
like
awesome.
I'm watching gameplay right now just for fun, just to kind of like being like in the headspace for it, and I'm watching a guy kill like little things on the ground.
Oh,
and
dude.
Then there's a dead body.
So
and
that game,
It's like chaos.
that game to me, because I like the rest of us, this is, or like Margaret said too, this is not a movie that needs a sequel. It's flawless. You know what I mean? It's so good, holds on its own, doesn't need anything. You enjoy it every time. That video game, to me, while it's not perfect, the storyline's the only thing that's kind of on it in my point. I mean, it's not bad. It's just the ending's not what I was hoping it was going to be. That game was perfect for any fans of the thing. Now, going into it, because I mean, I can't attest for this because obviously I've seen the movie a million times before the game came out, so I was a huge fan of the movie. Going into the game, I was super excited and knew, I was already attached to this story, attached to the characters involved way before the game came out. So what happened in the game, because you play a rescue. This guy, I can't remember the character's name. It's been so long since I played it, but you're there as a rescue to find out what's going on, and you find the aftermath, and you don't find anybody at first, but you do find people from another camp eventually. But so the people you do find with what's going on, the trust factor in the movie where they don't trust each other, they don't know who's who, they implemented that into the game. So when you meet up with other characters, you've got to retain their trust. If not, they'll turn on you. But you've also got to somehow keep them at a distance. And it was flawless. It kept that game so tense throughout the whole thing that you felt like you were there. Like you were literally in Antarctica in the situation that these characters are in. And it was unbelievable. And when the things pop up left and right, man, it's just, there's not a lot of ammo and it's hard to get through. And as you go through the game, you find, because McCready's recording on that tape cassette in the movie, you find his tapes. There's more than just one tape. And his tape starts to reveal more things that happened while, in this film, and then what happened to him afterwards. And it is, man, it's unbelievable. Because, you're there and, you get to go down to one, where the ship was that Blair was building. You have to go down in there, and there's so many scenes from the movie you go through and experience. But then, you find other characters, and the trust factor it's unbelievable. That game was the best possible sequel this movie could have ever get. It's the best sequel this movie did not deserve. Is I guess the best way to say that.
That's so cool.
So yeah, anybody who's not played the thing, if you watch the movie or a fan of the movie, definitely get a hold of a copy of that game. I've got it for Xbox and PlayStation 2, even though there's no difference. It's just I love that game this much. Like it's a really good game. So you guys have gotta check that out. And well, do we want to say anything about the prequel for those who have seen it? No.
I hadn't seen it, so.
So for those listening, it's not worth it. Just don't even bother with it. The one thing that drove me crazy about the prequel to this film that came out in 2011 was that they actually hired a special effects crew and did all practical effects for the movie. Okay, which is what made me excited. But then the movie came out and it's like, dude, it's all computer animated effects and they're terrible. What happened? They went through, and a lot of the scenes that you see in that film that are shot, there's practical effects in there. But they went through and covered it up and redid it with computer effects on top, and it's horrible. Yeah, horrible. It was such a bad decision, unbelievably bad decision.
I didn't see it.
Yeah, so not worth it. But all right, so and of course, now this is the first episode where we do the Stomp rating, and we have made our judgment call prior to the film, and we give this one a big whopping 4.5 out of 5, only because Ruben Ruben gave it a 4.
Thanks, Ruben.
Because it wasn't his favorite Carpenter film. But that's okay, because, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, if you really nitpick the little things, then a 4.5, I think, is a solid rating for this one out of 5. Would you guys agree?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Definitely. So before we end this, though, because this is John Carpenter, and we're John Carpenter fans, other than The Thing, what's like either your favorite or your next favorite John Carpenter film? Sarge, what about you? Because we know The Thing's your favorite. Thing's also my favorite Carpenter film. What would be your next favorite?
Man, I really do have to go with Halloween. I mean, it's so easy to say, but I mean, like that's just how iconic that movie is. I mean, it really did change horror movies for the better. I mean, anywhere from how things were shot, how you told it, how you told a story, musically. I mean, it's like it's really, really hard to beat for me. I mean, Thing is number one, but Halloween is definitely number two. Like when it comes to like the John Carpenter category, I mean, come on.
Yeah, definitely.
That's what it is for me.
Such a good movie. We could go on about Halloween on a lot of things. Ruben, what about you, man? What's your favorite or next to favorite?
We know this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We know it's not
the
the thing.
reason it's a 4.5. It's Halloween. If it wasn't for Halloween, I'd tell you the ones that battle it out for number one are Halloween, Escape from New York, and The Thing. You know, and it would depend on how I feel that day. But to me, Halloween's number one, followed by, I would say followed by The Thing right now, and then Escape from New York. If I had to rate them, you know, just right now, because you know he's got so many good ones. I mean,
oh man,
I probably will sit down and watch Christine, you know, and say, God, Lee, that was a great movie, Christine, and then They Live wasn't the greatest, but it's a cult classic now.
Man,
it's just so much fun to watch. You know,
Roddy Piper,
dude, that has got some of the best dialogue of any film.
Yeah, you know,
I came in and kick butt and chew bubble
gum. I remember when it came out. Yeah, when it came out, it was like, man. I remember I saw it, and I'm like, what did I just waste my money on?
Man, you know what's crazy? If you look at that movie, and this is screwing me off because I watched it not too long ago. I love They Live. It's definitely one of my favorite Carpenter films. You know, and you've got, of course, all these games that, you know, like Duke Nukem pretty much took every line from that movie and put it in the video game because Roddy Piper's hilarious. The concept of that, if you go back and watch it again, where everybody sees, you know, the TV commercials or the billboards, but when he puts those glasses on and it says obey or procreate or whatever, man, tell me that is not society today.
Yep.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. I saw it the other day too, about a month ago, and I'm like, wow,
dude, like that is a prophetic film if I've ever seen one. It's crazy, but that's a whole nother thing there. But so, all right. So I mean, we got Halloween. Mark, what about you?
Yeah. Has anybody watched In the Mouth of Madness?
Dude, that is the bomb.
You know, and
Mark Reagan. That was gonna be my honorable mention.
Well,
I love that movie, but Mark, please continue on because it's an incredible film.
You know, I battle back and forth with. I like The Thing. You know, the Halloween. Like I say, the Halloween 22s and 23s and you know that really burnt me out on it. And then I saw In the Mouth of Madness, and I was like, man, this is Carpenter doing it. And so The Thing and The Mouth of Madness, they're pretty tied, pretty close right there for me.
For that one.
Yeah.
Well, I think doesn't John Carpenter talk about his trilogy, and that's the last of his. Is that the last of his trilogy?
In the Mouth of Madness,
Prince of Darkness,
and In the Mouth of Madness.
Prince of Darkness.
Yep.
Yeah, and In the Mouth. Yeah.
Prince of Darkness. Yeah, dude, that's Body Bags. Y'all remember Body Bags?
Yeah.
I mean, John has not made a bad film that I can think of. You know, other than what was that one he made in 2011 though? That was like The Ward. It was still wasn't bad.
Oh yeah, that was 2010.
2010, okay. Which still wasn't a bad film, considering how many other horror films that came out around that time are still to this day that don't compare to that. But for John, specifically, I thought that was the weakest film he's ever done. But I mean,
well, I'm kind of surprised that because I've heard you talk about Big Trouble in Little China.
Dude, that's
one of your favorites.
Okay, so for me, because I was wanting to talk about In the Mouth of Madness for a second, and I will. But okay, so for me, the only reason why Big Trouble in Little China is not above The Thing for me is because I'm a bigger horror fan. That's why The Thing still tops. But Big Trouble in Little China is right there next to it. I mean, dude, I've got quotes from Big Trouble in Little China in the show's intro music. Like, I love Big Trouble in Little China.
But put a special note in there, Ruben, and you can vouch for this, that he did say Gamera 2 was his favorite Japanese monster movie over any of the Godzilla movies. So we got to know where he's coming from.
Yeah.
Look, when you realize just the greatness of things, you can't help and just side with that, all right? But yeah, definitely for me, I mean, Big Trouble in China, it is epically. Again, I mean, I can't tell you which one I like more. The only reason why, it's just they're so different. You know what I mean? Where you've got more fantasy action with Big Trouble, and this is just
and
more
it's not
horror.
It's not a horror movie; it's an action movie. But I just remember a few shows back you brought it up, and so I thought you were going to say that, but you were sticking to the horror, which is perfect. You know, that's understandable.
Yeah, but hey,
you were sticking to the horror movies.
We finally found some dynamite that has a fuse on it, and the thing is the place in the
there
background,
you go.
right where he kills Palmer. That dynamite had fuse. So Big Trouble in China. I mean, they've been trying to do a remake for that, and Escape from New York. Never going to happen. I definitely, In the Mouth of Madness. I do want to say something about that real quick. I'm a huge H.P. Lovecraft fan. His novellas, their novels. I mean, for those who read any type of scary book or horror book, I mean, he's who Stephen King says gives him nightmares. You know what I mean? He's in Bentley Little and stuff. I mean, no one's ever topped H.P. Lovecraft's books. I mean, At the Mountains of Madness or The Call of Cthulhu and Dagon and I mean, Shadows over Innsmouth. They're phenomenal because I mean, you're looking at 20-30 pages of a book at most of the time, and you're hooked from page one because of the way he writes. And it's just you're sucked into this world that he can create in a few pages. That's unbelievable. In the Mouth of Madness was John's, because I've seen tons of movies that are based off H.P. Lovecraft films, and most of them are decent or terrible. There's never been an amazing movie based off of H.P. Lovecraft's material until In the Mouth of Madness. In the Mouth of Madness is a complete amalgam of stuff from about 20 books of his. John was a big fan, wanted to do a movie about his stuff, and threw like the best of the best in one thing. And that's one of the reasons why I think In the Mouth is definitely one of the best films I've ever seen for horror. Is just there's so much Lovecraftian in there because that's what he did. He just poured Lovecraft stuff into that film.
It's a good film.
Such a good movie. I think an honorable mention is Assault on Precinct 13. You guys ever seen that one?
Yeah.
Man. Sarge, have you seen that? The original one?
Oh, yeah. It was like in what?
Dude, that was...
It was like in the early 80s or late 70s?
Late
70s. I think it was late 70s.
Right?
That was one thing, Josh and Jared, the singer and drummer from The Protest with Sarge, their dad loves The Warriors, which is a great movie.
Oh, yeah.
A great movie.
Oh, yeah, great movie.
But I will argue with him through and through that Assault on Precinct 13 is better only because of that. Only because the fight sequences in Assault on Precinct 13 are so much more raw than any movie, and because it's got a very Warriors vibe anyways, just inside the police headquarters. But the fight scene in Assault on Precinct 13 is so raw that it's to me, it's still one of the hardest fight sequences, or any of the fights in that movie are so hard to top because it's just like, dude, that's real life. Like I'm watching real life footage right now. And the reason why is when John never hired an action coordinator for that movie at all. He said, just do it. I want it raw. That's what he said. And it turned out perfect on film. You know what I mean? It's just unbelievable. So definitely not one of the better Carpenter films because it's more suspense, thriller, action. But man, the rawness of those fight sequences in that movie just are things that just when you see them, they stick with you forever, I think, because he's John Carpenter.
John Carpenter.
Yeah.
All right.
Another one that gets overlooked, which I didn't even know was a John Carpenter film till later on. After was The Eyes of Laura Mars. Have y'all ever seen that?
No,
I have not seen it.
Really? Yeah, I remember seeing that. I didn't see that at the theaters. I actually saw that on HBO. I was on TV or something. And that one's more of a mystery thriller type of thing.
I'm gonna look that one up.
He didn't direct it. He didn't direct it. All he did was write it. He was the writer.
Okay.
On it, yeah.
I feel a little better about myself because when you said that, I was like, dude,
he didn't direct it. Yeah, he didn't direct it. He just wrote it. It was with Faye Dunaway, Tommy Lee Jones, and I don't want to give too much away on it. So, but it's a great movie. The synopsis is basically there's this photographer who takes these violent type photographs for magazines or whatever. And so she starts seeing these visions of murders that actually happen.
That would be cool.
Yeah. So that actually happened. So she sees this vision. She takes the pictures, but the murders actually happened. So they start investigating, and of course it goes from there. I don't want to give too much away on it because if you guys ever get a chance to watch it,
I want to see the movie.
It's pretty good because she sees these scenes of the murders, and then all of a sudden it happens. and it's exactly like the picture. So it's a pretty good movie, and it's pretty original. It's one of John Carpenter's best writings, I think. He does a lot of good writing, and he's an excellent director. But this one, he didn't direct. All he did was the writing, and I don't even know if they give him credit for it. I knew it was John Carpenter. Later on, I read about it, but that's another good one.
Man, a couple other ones I didn't think about too. Vampires. Yeah. John Carpenter's Vampires.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, great movie.
So good. That one was good. Then Ghosts of Mars. That was another one of John's. I dug that.
I haven't seen it.
Oh man, so good.
Yeah, Ghost of Mars is one that a lot of my friends will say, "Oh, that wasn't that good," but I'll sit there and watch it over and over again. I like it.
Yeah, if it's on, I'll check it out.
Yeah.
I'll definitely watch it. It's very good. So
yeah.
All right, so that's going to wrap it up for this one. Of course, now next month we are continuing the Godzilla movies, and it's going to be big because the next episode. I'm so excited for it because obviously Sarge, you're back for this one, correct?
So correct.
Oh man, so this might be a long episode because we have got 4 big Godzilla fans here, fanatics here, and we have all seen this next film who knows how many times. Of course, and this is Sarge's favorite as well. But not only that, we have got Godzilla King of the Monsters coming up in like 2.5 months, 3 months, and
wow,
in Godzilla King of the Monsters, you've got Godzilla, Ghidorah, Rodan, Mothra. In Ghidorah 3 of Monster, you've got Godzilla, Rodan, Ghidorah, Mothra. So I mean, it's pretty on par to a lot of similarities in the films, and we're going to dig deep into that. I'm really excited about that one because, like I said, it might be a long episode.
Yeah,
so,
I'm excited.
So Sarge will be back.
Godzilla foe. Yeah, my favorite Godzilla foe has always been. I'm always having debates on Godzilla's foes, and I'm always picking Ghidorah. And they,
Oh, dude, I think we all could.
Debate. Yeah,
Ghidorah is.
Oh no, it was just awesome.
He's Spider-Man's Venom. You know what I mean? Ghidorah is the biggest of the bad. It really is. And what Joe?
Yeah, Batman's Joker for sure.
Oh, definitely. Which is, I give Sarge a hard time the other night because I finally just got a chance to watch Godzilla Planet Eater, and with Ghidorah being in it in a new take, and Sarge still has not watched that movie. It blows my mind.
Hey, man. A big. The Godzilla fan, I do feel slightly ashamed for not having watched that yet, but it's as people say, it's on my Netflix list, on my watch list.
On your watch list, you got to check it out and definitely let us know. So,
we're gonna have to. Yeah, did you like it?
Me, I loved it. I loved it.
I thought it was great.
I did not care for it.
Well, I don't want to give too much away because Sarge hasn't seen it, but they went a little too deep into the spiritual part of it. But to me, and of course I don't want to give too much because Sarge hasn't seen it, that's the take on Ghidorah was absolutely amazing, and his appearance blew me away. I was floored when he first appeared in this film. I mean, just the things that happen, and Sarge, you'll see and you'll know, but like Ruben with the things that happened on the ship, like I was stunned by Ghidorah in this movie. So that wraps up another monster movie Stompdown. Definitely join us next month for Ghidorah, the 3-headed monster. Going to be a great one to talk about. There's a lot to talk about in this film, and all 4 of us are back. Again, we want to thank Sarge for being here today. And for next month's episode, Sarge, thank you.
Thanks, Sarge.
Can I say one more thing? Kind of bring this whole boat back to shore about the thing.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Awesome. So when we kind of when we first started off with like what are the things that we liked most about the thing, I totally forgot to mention was the movie poster artwork.
Yeah,
it's some of the greatest artwork I've ever seen. So, like, for all you listeners out there, and if you can just kind of place yourself in a time without the internet, just like if you see this artwork and you're like, okay, this just says John Carpenter's the thing, but you get this person that kind of it's like in this winter kind of like Eskimo kind of like overall kind of coat looking thing with like this beaming light shining out of it. You're just like, well, what is that? What could that possibly be? So that right there for me, that's like the artwork alone made me want to watch the movie. That's why I watched the movie in the first place, was because like the person didn't match the name. So for me, it's like the artwork is like some of my favorite artwork in the entire world. So like for you people out there that have never seen the movie and you see that, give it a watch, because like it's not what you expect, and it's just like I said, it's like it's my favorite horror movie of all time, and everybody on the planet should watch it.
Man, to add on to that,
I just want to thank everybody for being on the podcast. Make sure you tune in next month for like the Godzilla episode, and we'll talk more about The Thing. Hopefully, The Thing will be in the next Godzilla movie. And I just want to thank all the sponsors: Blue Apron, ZipRecruiter.
Dude, to add on to that real quick, Sarge, because I mean you're right. I don't know why we didn't bring up the poster. The promotional thing for this movie, just so you guys know, was phenomenal. When you go back, if you can find on YouTube and watch the trailer for this as well, they never even show a glimpse of any of the things, like any of his appearances whatsoever. You have no idea when you watch the trailer who they're even running from. They give no ties to it, and it was awesome. And it was the same thing with the poster too. You just don't know. And I forgot totally. Do you guys remember what the tagline for this movie was? Anybody?
I do not.
It was the best tagline I thought I'd heard since "In Space, No One Can Hear You Scream" from Alien. Because it was kind of played off of that. The tagline for this was "Man is the warmest place to hide."
Wow.
Oh, that's so cool.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That was like perfect for this movie. So, all right, man. Well, again, guys, thank you so much for listening to this. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. Hit us up on Facebook. You got anything you want to say? Pete, holler out to you, because I definitely know you want to say something about this film. I want to hear what you say about it. So, Pete, when you're listening, you know he's one of the best listeners we got. Man, me and him talk a lot, and he's just an awesome dude. Has a pretty cool show of his own. You should check out. But again, thank you guys so much. Holler at us on Facebook about this. Join us again for the next Monster Movie Stompdown next month with Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. And this is Sludge.
This is Mark.
Ruben.
Sarge.
Y'all have a good night.